Megyn Kelly, you're really on one. We are all too familiar with the leftist, liberal, feminist narrative, right? But we rarely ever address the right-wing conservative form of feminism. You know, like your Laura Ingraham, I'm not married, but I want to adopt a bunch of children and be a single mother by choice. See, we rarely address that reality that, you know, the feminist ideology, it's strong, it's powerful. Even women who don't identify as liberals, leftists, or feminists still have been affected by it. And this is a prime example of how powerful it is when you have a conservative right wing, Megyn Kelly, defending a bunch of bogus liberal statistics, defending the president because he was biracial, hopping on the race bandwagon argument the same way that the homosexuals do when they want to promote their marriages. She did that too. So let's take a look at what Megyn Kelly did. So there's another article in the news, like always, about how bad it is for women, even though they're doing just fine, apparently. And I was going to do a different video where I was going to talk about, you know, we're seeing another article about women are taking over and they're ruling the world, Yet at the same damn time, they're complaining and fighting in Congress and saying that they're not making enough and they need paid vacation and they need maternity leave guaranteed when they're not working, and the employer's supposed to be okay with that. You know, they're still wanting more things, extra special rights that men could never have, and yet we never hear anything about the side of the story from the men. You know, it's this notion that, you know, women are just outperforming men, as if men are just not doing anything and they just taking it, you know. And we don't hear from the men and how they feel. We hear from the henpecked husbands who become comfortable because they have no choice to stay at home and be stay-at-home mommies and go on play dates and do things of that nature. Which, if that's what you want to do, that's your business. I have no issue with that. But the reality is we're not hearing from men. Like, I've been, you know, watching a lot of dudes talking about getting laid off in the last few weeks. My job's laying off people. A lot of men. I was at the gym one day and a bunch of teachers were talking about getting laid off. I don't think they were police officers, but some people in that field as well. But I'm just hearing every day, I'm bumping into men talking about the layoffs and losing their jobs and things of that nature, having to start all over. And yet, again, we keep hearing the female narrative. We keep hearing their point of view, their side of the story, but we don't hear that other end. And I'm going to address that in a different video. But back to Megyn, liberal leftist Kelly, all of a sudden, she's really on one. So I guess I'll give a disclaimer, give a narration real quick. So there was a debate, Hugh Dobbs and another gentleman, and they were talking about what happened in the article, and they're looking at, you know, how is this going to affect us as a nation in the future? How is all these, you know, henpecked husbands and all these women leading, you know, what effects does it have on children? What does it have effect does it have on society? What effect will it have in future on policy? Because one of the things that leftists want is they want publicly funded daycare. So that's another thing we're going to have to check off that list. Free healthcare, free daycare, free education, free food. So we're going to have to add more things to this situation. And it's not looking good because a lot of these things seem far-fetched, but it's happening slowly. But anyways, in this conversation, Hugh Dobbs, I guess he did on his show first, and he had the other gentleman on his show, and then Megyn Kelly felt some type of way and she wanted to bring him on her show and have a conversation with them too. But the problem is Megyn Kelly, she's not being a journalist and having the conversation, having a debate. She's personalizing the story because she's one of these affluent white women who think, you know, her nose is up here, and she's not really thinking about what we're talking about as a whole. Everybody, not just elite wealthy white women such as herself, but we're saying, like, how does this whole narrative affect society as a whole? And she couldn't compartmentalize it. She couldn't say, well, maybe, you know, I'm going to do what I'm going to do regardless, and this is working for me and my husband, but it might not work for the rest of society. She couldn't do that. She spent her whole time, because she was majorly butthurt, arguing and, you know, sounding like a damn liberal. What you're saying is hurting my feelings. Like, what? Where they do that at? That's a standard liberal deflection. What you're saying is hurtful, so you can't have the conversation anymore. She also says, she also quotes crazy, ridiculous leftist biased statistics that Had it been any other topic, she would refute them herself. But because it defends her position, single motherhood, and homosexual couples who raise children, she's on their team right now. So she's team homo right now, you know. Then she even jumped on the bandwagon of the president, saying, you know, she used the same gay argument of, well, gay people were told that they shouldn't have kids together the same way black and white couples shouldn't. She really went there. Like, she went all Mr. Fantastic, just stretched way left field. To, you know, this is the conservative right-wing woman using liberal leftist arguments and debating tactics. Enough for me. Let's let her speak.
Dynamics of the American family are changing. According to the Pew Research Center, mothers are now the sole or primary provider in 4 out of 10 households that include children under the age of 18. Back in 1960, that number was just 11%. The report sparking a debate on Lou Dobbs Tonight over on FBN over whether this spells problems for families. Listen.
When we're watching society dissolve around us, Juan, what do you think?
You're seeing, I think, systemically, larger than the political stories that we follow every day, something going terribly wrong in American society, and it's hurting our children.
Lou, I'm so used to liberals telling conservatives that they're anti-science, but I mean, this is liberals who defend this and say it's not a bad thing are very anti-science. When you look at biology, look at the natural world, the roles of a male and a female in society and other animals. The male typically is the dominant role. The female, it's not antithesis or it's not competing. It's a complementary role.
Bottom line, it could undermine our social order.
Joining me now, Lou Dobbs, host of Lou Dobbs Tonight on the Fox Business.
So real quick, what you see here is you had Juan Williams, you had Lou Dobbs, and you had the guy from, I don't know his name, I think his name is Mike. But they're all like, yo, you know, forget the kittens, puppies, and rainbows. Yeah, women are doing good, and that's great, good for you. But let's look beyond this. You know, let's be logical and rational here. Let's not be all hyped up on feelings and emotion, which is exactly what Miss Kelly is doing. Let's look beyond all that, but she can't do. And it's crazy how even though, you know, Lou and the guy who's talking and the other guy, you know, they're from different opinions still, yet they still agree like, yo, we need to take a time out and look at the future implications of what's going on in society. And how, I mean, you think about this too. Now look at this narrative. On one hand, she's happy that women are doing fine, doing great, yet, you know, there's cause and effect from this situation. She wants to remove the conversation from the single motherhood, which you cannot do, which Lou Dobbs was trying not to let her, but of course she got upset and cock-blocked. But you can't remove that because the whole situation with the female-headed household breadwinner thing, that leads to divorce, which leads to single motherhood. So you cannot subtract single motherhood from the conversation. You can't do that. And she doesn't want to go there. Again, it might work for her and her husband, but we're looking beyond you. It's not about you. It's about everybody else and how it affects all of us as a whole.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I'll start with you, Eric. What makes you dominant and me submissive? And who died and made you scientist-in-chief?
Oh, it doesn't have anything to do with submissiveness per se, and it was certainly poorly constructed how I said it. What I meant by that was when you look throughout society, look at other animals, the male of the species tends to be the protector, the dominant one in that regard. And we've gotten to a point in this country where you have a lot of feminists who think that the male and female roles are completely interchangeable, that there is no need for a man to support his family. You've got men walking away. You've got women becoming single mothers, not by their choice. You got a lot of people thinking it's a lifestyle choice. This isn't healthy for society when we think that roles of gender completely can be interchangeable. No one's saying women can't be or shouldn't be a breadwinner or even the primary breadwinner. It's just that when we forced ourselves to this point in society where they have to be, that's not a good, healthy thing for society.
All right, but that's not exactly what you have been saying over the past couple of days. You got in trouble on Lou's show. We'll get to you in a minute, Mr. Dobbs.
Can't wait.
But you made these comments and then you posted a blog at Red State trying to expand on your comments. And let's put for the moment to the side the issue of single parents. Because that is dicier, and there is more data to support the notion that children who are in single-parent families don't fare as well often. But you took it well beyond that, and this is from your blog. In modern society, we're not supposed to point out that children in a two-parent heterosexual nuclear household have a better chance at long-term success in life than others. In modern society, we're supposed to applaud feminists who teach women they can have it all, that there's no gender-identifying role and women can fulfill the role of husbands and fathers just as men do. Now, there is data in the scientific community to suggest that children of homosexual couples who are happily married and are good parents fare no worse than children of heterosexual couples. And there is plenty of data to suggest that children of working moms, as opposed to stay-at-home moms, wind up just as healthy and able to thrive in society than the children of stay-at-home mothers.
Yeah, you know, Megan, I tend to dispute that data largely because it's been so self-selective. If you take the most comprehensive study, for example, of gay families that came out of the University of Texas, that the left has tried to undermine, the sociologists who studied it noted that many of these studies that show there are no problems are typically of high-income lesbian families. And when you study higher-income families, you're absolutely right. Working mothers are very high-income. Their children, there really isn't a big difference. But when you go into the middle class, where a lot of these issues are bubbling up, when you have a mom who's working 12 hours a day and a dad who's working 12 hours a day, and they come home and they're also trying to be good parents, you can't have it all. And they're making compromises, and I'm not judging them, and no one should, but it's just a reality.
You are,
no,
though.
I'm not judging them.
You are, because you come out very clearly and say that you believe that women who choose to work, instead of staying at home to, quote, nurture their children, and instead have the father do that, are imposing a worse future on their children than women who make a different choice, the choice you and your wife made.
Megan, I don't view it as judging. I view it as a statement of fact that when you've got a mom who's working full-time and then coming home trying to be a full-time mom as well, it's very difficult. And I think 3/4 of the public, according to the Pew poll, agree that it's much harder to do.
Just because you have people who agree with you doesn't mean it's not offensive. And I know in your blog you talk about how you believe it's feminists, and I don't know what the word is, some sort of liberals. Eco-liberals? What did you call them?
Emo-liberal.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is,
about it.
but I don't think I'm an emo-liberal, and I don't describe myself as a feminist.
Either.
But I will tell you, I was offended by your piece nonetheless. I didn't like what you wrote one bit, and I do think you are judging people. To me, you sound like somebody who's judging but wants to come out and say, I'm not, and now let me judge. And by the way, it's science, it's fact. Well, I mean, I have this is a list of studies saying your science is wrong and your facts are wrong. I want to get.
So she didn't address the reality that in middle class and poor families, moms and dads are working 2 jobs, working all those hours. The kids suffer in that situation. That's pretty damn common sense. Anybody who grew up in the hood and a poor family can understand that. That's just the way it is. Yet she didn't want to go there. What did she have to do? She had to say that, well, gay people and same-sex couples, they come out fine. He refuted by replying, when they're wealthy, yes, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about middle to poor income families. They have issues. She doesn't want to address that. So she does the same thing that liberals do to promote different forms of family, where liberals hinge on the single motherhood to push their agenda as far as gay marriages. What Laura just did was she pulled on the gay marriage thing to address her issue of being a working mother. Again, this conversation had nothing to do with her, yet she made it personal. She's a journalist, yet she couldn't separate the two. And this is why we see the narrative of women not being able to lead or be in charge, because not even only by men, but women feel the same way because of what she's doing right now. She said what he wrote was offensive. It hurt her feelings. So what? Does that mean we can't have a conversation anymore because you feel some type of way about a reality that's hurting society as a whole? Do we let things continue the way they are because it hurt your feelings? Again, she has a piece of paper full of leftist statistics saying that everything is fine, but them joints are biased off the bat. And if it was any other topic, she would be refuting them herself. But because it's something that hits home, she's going along with it. There's no facts on that damn piece of paper. Go to any black community or any poor neighborhood and pull out those facts, and you will see that they're all wrong.
Him when he was on your show.
Well, let me give you the sound of
Be careful,
the
Lou.
agreement, and that is this. What I said, and what I would acknowledge immediately, is that Eric is wrong about nature itself. The male is not always dominant, whether it be in a pride of lions or whether it be in the queen bee and her hive and workers. But when the Serengeti is on fire, and that's what I was saying, it is time to look at what the impact here is. We are looking at a war on drugs that we're losing. We're looking at an economy in which jobs are not being replaced with either equal pay or near equal pay with a replacement job. We are watching classic traditional jobs in construction, manufacturing that have been male dominated in the sense that they were the predominant number of workers disappearing. We are looking at a society in which change is the absolute hallmark. And for people, and for anyone, in any discussion, in any debate on what is happening with women in the workplace, to ignore the fact that we have marriages breaking up, shattering in this society, and we know that that reduces by at least a...
Why are you attributing that to women in the workforce?
Excuse me. Let me just finish what I'm saying, if I may, O dominant one. The fact is
Excuse me?
that 3 times as many people in a single-family, a single-parent household are likely to end up with great psychological illness, with severe psychological illness.
But we were putting to the side single-parent families. We were putting that to the side. We were putting that to the side.
We can't put it to the side. You can't put it to the side.
Yes, we can, Lou, because we've had that debate, and that's not what this debate was about. The debate, the place I took the debate...
It's exactly what it's about.
No, it isn't. It is not, because Eric took it...
Think about the reason.
Let me go back to Eric. Let me go back to Eric.
Again, I disagree with Hughes on that one, because are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely, but the exceptions do not break the rule. In most species, the male is still the dominant one in majority of the species. So him deflecting from that, to me, makes no sense. But I agree with him when he talks about the narrative of single parent household, because Megan wants to separate the two, but you cannot. And I'm not saying that Lou was going there or not, but let's just be realistic, keep it 100. A lot of these females households, the women tend to end up resenting their husbands because he's not providing. Okay, a lot of times these situations end in divorce, which end up putting that woman in a position where she's a single mother again, right? So Megan wants to remove this conversation from single motherhood, but we can't remove it because 9 times out of 10 in this context, she got there because of the strains on the marriage and the financial burdens. You know, it put them in that position. And Lou's right, you cannot remove that element from it. You cannot separate that situation. Again, this situation might not work for everybody. I mean, it works for a few. Some women are cool with it. A lot of women are trying to be brainwashed into accepting that narrative. CEO of Facebook, COO rather, Sheryl Sandberg, she wants the next generation of men to be that type of man. She wants them to be the henpecked at home husbands. And she wants the women to go out and pursue better careers, because obviously they don't do that because they can't, not because of discrimination, but because these women opt out and they go back and they want to be moms, and they want to be better wives, and they want to have a better relationship with their children before they leave. Now, the simple common sense answer to this to me is you raise your children, you nurture them, you take a time out, then once the kids are gone or old enough to do their own thing, you go back to work. Why is that so difficult? That just makes sense to me. But anyways, again, you cannot separate the whole single motherhood situation from this, because in this context it contributes to the reality of the single motherhood. When a woman comes home, as you see in my video with Eleanor, if you lose your job, you lose her respect. That situation is more often than not going to happen, and I hear it all the time from black women. This is the thing that's confusing though. It's like they want the provider, the protector, the leader. At the same damn time, they don't want to be the type of woman that gets that type of a guy. They want you to do those things and be like that when it's convenient for them, but then when they're tired or when they don't feel like doing it anymore, they want to put all the pressure on you, and that's when that resentment comes in. So I think Megan is in delusion of this, or ignoring that, or maybe it could be something that's happened in real life in her life, but you can't separate single motherhood from the situation or the conversation.
Think
Eric
about
took
the
it.
reason.
Let
Think
me go
about
back
the
to Eric.
reason.
Let me go back to Eric.
Is
No,
he more
because you're
fun than
getting
me?
out
Is
of
he more
bounds.
fun than
You're
me?
getting out of bounds on the
Megan?
safer territory. Let me go back to Eric because this is from your blog. This is according to Eric Erickson, and I quote, "The truth. Kids most likely will do best in households where they have a mom at home nurturing them while dad is out bringing home the bacon." American Psychological Association 2010 study, according to a review of 50 years of research. Children whose mothers work are no more likely to have any problems than kids whose mothers stay at home. They studied 69 studies over 59 years of research. Your fact and your science, Eric, is not supported by the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Columbia University study, University of North Carolina study. I mean, why are we supposed to take your word for it, Eric Erickson's science, instead of all of these experts?
Well, because one, I think the experts can be as politically motivated as anyone else when it comes to these particular studies because it plays into a particular current notion that it's okay. And second, I do think when you got 3/4 of the public willing to recognize that the increase in moms as breadwinners, it makes it harder to raise kids. Yeah, I think most people understand moms typically are more nurturing than dads. Not always, not in all cases, and it's painting in very broad brushstrokes, I admit.
Do you know that in this country, in the 50s and 60s, there were huge, huge numbers of people that believed that the children of interracial marriages were inferior, were biologically inferior, and that is why it was illegal for blacks and whites to marry in some states in this country up until 1967. And they said it was science and it was fact. If you were the child of a black father and a white mother or vice versa, you were inferior and you were not going to set up for success. Tell that to Barack Obama.
Oh no, she didn't go there. We're gonna have to call her Mrs. Fantastic because she's reaching again. So now the conservative Megyn Kelly is defending the man-giant in chief. Again, she used a gay argument to defend her argument. Now she's also using the fact that the whole biracial situation, which is something that gay people did, they say, see, they didn't let them get together back in the days, so why can't they let us? They're conflating two situations that have absolutely nothing to do with each other. A black man and a black woman does not redefine the definition of marriage or do anything to infringe upon the institution. But it's the same argument homosexuals use. Now she's jumping on that bandwagon. The second thing she does is she talks about the man-giant in chief. So wait a minute. The President of the United States admits that he struggled with his identity because he was a mixed-race child growing up in Kansas and Hawaii. He admits the lack of his father not being there also attributed to his bad behavior. Now these are his words. Of course he's a leftist and he blames everybody for his own problems. That's what he did. But he himself said, being raised by his racist grandmother and his very, very promiscuous mom, he gives them all the credit for his success. On the other hand, he blames his black father who was not there, and being that he was biracial in his environment is why he struggled with his identity and why he did bad things. So Megan's using him as the example, saying he achieved, he made it, but she's ignoring his own words in his own books on how those same experiences is why he did bad when he was young. How do you do that, Megan? Let's honestly be realistic. He wouldn't be who he was had he not married Michelle Obama. Let's keep it 100. He was the henpecked house husband. She was working. She wasn't with him when he was shooting. She was shooting in the gym, right? She was a professor. She was a damn partner at 30. He worked for her. Okay? He was community organizing. She was bringing home the bacon for the first 10 years of their marriage. If it wasn't for her, he would not be where he's at. And it's alleged that when he lost his first election, it put them deeper in debt. And that's when she was about to file for divorce. So, again, you can't just look at one situation and look at the outcome without looking at all the steps they took to get there. And he himself has admitted that the situation that he grew up in, his environment, not having his father around, being raised by his racist grandmother, his mother being a freak, having all these different dudes in his life, and the fact that he was biracial. Again, these are his excuses on why he did bad when he was young. Remember, though, he gives his racist grandmother and his freak mom credit for all his success, but he blames his father's absence for all his failures. Oh, keep it on.
Look, Megan, look, I completely agree with you on that, but I do think there absolutely is something to kids having a stable home life. I'm not saying moms can't work. I'm not saying dads should be the only ones to work.
What's unstable about having a working mother and a nurturing, loving, stay-at-home father?
You know, if it works for you, God bless you for it working for you. But I do think that most people need to realize that they work on an individual case. But in generalities, I do think having the mom who's the nurturing one at home when kids are little. My wife worked when my child was little.
But that's your choice. God bless you and your wife for your choice. And nobody would take that away from you. But you are denigrating the choices made by others. Let me get back to Lou.
I'm not.
Let me get back.
So if we remember back a few months ago, we had Anne-Marie Slaughter, the chick who wrote the article, Why Women Can't Have It All, or Still Can't Have It All. Even though she advocates for some crazy things that I don't agree with, as far as she wants the workforce to restructure so that women can work when they want to work, basically, and, you know, have all this leave and time off in a competitive society where, you know, we're not even doing great right now, yet making people less productive is not the way to go. But anyways, why is it that this woman, the liberal leftist feminist, she had a job with the Obama administration and all that, yet she left that job because she was being honest, and she said that, you know, I'm a female, I'm a woman, I have these urges, I want to be nurturing to my children. She realized that the relationship between her and her sons and her husband was bad. Her son's behavior started to shift, and she said that, you know what, I can't do all this at once. She already had her husband doing more than he ever had been doing before, yet it was still not enough, right? So she was honest enough to say, I'm doing too much, I need to go back home and be around my kids. Not quit my job and come home, but take a job that's less demanding of my time and attention. Again, the liberal leftist feminists can be honest about that and say, you know what, this was difficult, I felt some type of way about it, so I had to go back home. Yet Megyn Kelly can't comprehend and understand the same scenario, same situation. Again, it might work for her and her family in her household, but we're not looking at her, we're looking at it as a whole.
Let me get back to Lou and take it away from the single parent thing, because that's not, I mean, the facts are what the facts are and what happens with
I've made
these
your
families.
life harder, Lou.
But I'm trying to ask Lou to weigh in on your much more controversial statements about loving families, both parents present, and your notion that it is damaging to children to have the mother as the primary wage earner. Okay. Lou, I'll give you the last word.
Okay, the last word on this is I won't take up his argument. He's done very well, or as best he can, against your views. But the reason it's important to look at the impact of single-parent households and not take away from the discussion, but really add to it. Boys, males, are far more impacted by the disruption that surrounds a single-parent household. And the result is, in part, what we're seeing in society as they age and fail to be entering law school, going to get through high school, for crying out loud. It is very important to keep that in the discussion, in the debate.
I got it.
And meanwhile, God bless you and my wife and my daughters. I think I came out of this all right.
Now, Lou makes a great point there at the end of it. He talks about the situation with the boys again and how it affects them growing up in these type of situations and how you cannot separate the single motherhood situation. And he doesn't say it, but I say it's like reality is these female-headed households, a lot of them end in divorce. Let's just be 100. And nobody addressed that in this piece, but that's a part of the problem. Now, the question is, what happens to boys who grow up in these environments where the divorce happens, or even, and I'm not going to act like there aren't a bunch of henpecked husbands anyways who are protectors and providers and they still let their wives rule over them. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. That's true. It does exist too. But we're adding to it now with more of that situation. And what type of men are we creating? The question really is can America be America still if we have a bunch of females running it, right? And all the men are passive and subservient or play a subservient role to the wives. Can America take that and still be America? That's the reality of the question. And it's obvious that we can't. Now, in reality, I think that's where we're going regardless. But I love the fact that a bunch of men were trying to have this conversation, yet it's the right-wing woman. She's the biggest block. And if you look at, you know, how feminism crept into the black community through black church, the same situation went that way. Their form of feminism wasn't the I hate men, all this other nonsense thing that the liberal leftist feminists had. Their mindset was, well, we're responding to weak men. We're responding to men who aren't doing enough. we're doing it because men won't do it. That's the Christian or the conservative form of feminism right there. And if you look at the black church, look how it looks. It's a matriarchy, just like the rest of the black community, and it's falling apart. There are no men there. There are only effeminate homosexuals that are all in the choir and in the pulpits, a bunch of single baby mamas in the stands, because men who are not idiots are not going to sit there and listen to the nonsense and see how certain people get passes for their transgressions and other folks don't, i.e. the baby mamas and the homosexuals get passes, but the men are all bad. And most men ain't going to sit there and be about that life. But it is crazy how you got all these, women who pretty much, the feminists got in the air like, well, how come y'all can't be preachers? How come y'all don't have a bigger part or role? How come y'all can't have all these titles? They have all that now, and look at the institution of the black church. Look at it. Now, my question is, what happens when the rest of society, the rest of America, looks just like that dynamic? I'll wait.